Welcome to Psyche Talks. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something that, well, it impacts every single one of us. The power of not reacting, how to control your emotions.
hmm
Our mission here is to really unpack how you can become truly emotionally intelligent. Learning to direct your responses with intention, maintain your composure, no matter what life throws your way. Just imagine a world where you could consistently choose your reactions instead of just, well, acting without thinking. Where those impulsive words or actions, the ones born from the heat of the moment, they become a thing of the past. We've all been there, right? That sting of regret.
Absolutely. And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how much power is unlocked by simply grasping the distinction between an impulsive reaction and a thoughtful response. Emotions are natural. I mean, they're a vital part of being human. They give us crucial information. But when they take the driver's seat without our conscious okay, they can send us down paths we really later regret, often leading to rash decisions or, strained relationships. So our goal in exploring these sources today is to help you identify the specific triggers that spark those intense emotional reactions within you, and then equip you with concrete strategies to manage those emotions effectively. By cultivating this deeper self awareness and control, you'll find yourself navigating challenges with far more grace, making decisions that genuinely reflect your deepest intentions and values.
That distinction, yeah, from merely reacting to consciously responding.
Yeah.
That really is the cornerstone, isn't it? It's about building a robust self-awareness and an active practice of mindfulness. This lets us create that vital pause, a crucial moment of space even when things are really stressful.
Yeah.
And that pause, it isn't about suppressing what you feel, right?
Not at all.
It's more about giving yourself the mental real estate needed to choose a response, one that truly aligns with your long-term goals, your personal values, instead of just being swept away by that immediate emotional current.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, mastering this deliberate shift from reactive to responsive behavior, it fundamentally transforms how you handle life's challenges. The ripple effects are profound. We see, enhanced relationships, significantly improved decision-making abilities, and just a palpable uplift in one's overall quality of life. It's really about cultivating an internal locus of control over your emotional landscape, rather than feeling like you're just at the mercy of external circumstances or those internal impulses.
Okay, so how do we even begin to map that internal emotional landscape?
Our sources spend quite a bit of time on understanding emotional triggers. Ever wondered why certain situations, or maybe just an offhand comment, can instantly make you angry, or anxious, or sad, sometimes way out of proportion to the actual event?
It's a super common experience. These are what our sources call emotional triggers, specific events, conversations, even certain people that spark these intense, often overwhelming emotional reactions. And what's critical to understand is that these triggers are deeply personal. They're often linked to past experiences or, deeply ingrained beliefs. Like, for instance, if you were frequently criticized or felt overlooked as a kid, maybe a seemingly minor slight at work might trigger this huge feeling of insecurity or resentment, not really because of the present situation itself, but because it's echoing that past wound.
That's where it gets really interesting for me, that insight that these intense emotions aren't necessarily a direct reflection of present reality. They're often echoes of past experiences. Recognizing that feels incredibly liberating because it means you have a choice in how you respond to the echo, right? Rather than just reliving the original experience over and over.
Exactly right. And this isn't about blaming others for your triggers, not at all. It's about gaining profound insight into your own inner workings. By becoming really aware of what sets you off, you start to reclaim control over your reactions. Our sources also highlight the importance of understanding your default responses. So when you're confronted with a trigger, what's your automatic ingrained reaction? Is it anger? Do you withdraw? Maybe become overly agreeable, trying to please? Or immediately start deflecting blame? These aren't inherently good or bad. They are simply conditioned responses, learned behaviors. And the good news is, because they are conditioned, they can be changed. The first step, like you said, is pinpointing them through some honest introspection, looking inward.
Okay. And as you sort of delve deeper into this self-discovery, the material points towards recognizing your physiological responses. Your body actually sends you signals when an emotional stirring begins. We're talking about, an increased heart rate, maybe shallow breathing, that tightness in your chest or a knot in your stomach. It's like learning a new language, isn't it? The unique language of your own self-awareness. It definitely takes practice to tune into, but it sounds like it's worth the effort.
Oh, absolutely. And this recognition phase, it's fundamentally about observation, not judgment. That's key. As you become more attuned to your body's subtle reactions, you develop this heightened sense of awareness that's both, well, enlightening and empowering. You start to discern the nuance. Like an accelerated heartbeat might not just be fear, it could also be excitement, that lump in your stomach. Maybe not just apprehension, it could be anticipation for something new. It's really about understanding the rich, complex dialogue happening between your mind and your physical self.
Okay, so once you've started mapping that inner landscape and understanding your default patterns, the next crucial step seems to be creating tools for change. Our sources introduce this concept of a pause button, like a mental construct,
Pretty much.
almost like a stop sign that just pops up in your mind when an emotional surge starts. It's your brain's cue to hit the brakes, take a moment, and consciously reassess the situation before you act. Now, this sounds simple on the surface, but it feels like a skill that absolutely takes time and consistent practice to master. How do we even begin to implement something like that when emotions are running high? Feels tough.
It can be initially, but one of the most effective science-backed techniques for creating that vital pause is through deliberate breathing exercises. Our sources specifically highlight the 4-7-8 method. You inhale for 4 seconds, hold the breath for 7 seconds, and then exhale slowly for 8 seconds.
Or 7, 8. Okay.
And you might wonder, how can such a simple action have such a profound effect?
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Well, the answer lies in its impact on your nervous system. When you're emotionally charged, your sympathetic nervous system kicks into fight or flight mode. That leads to shallow, rapid breathing, which, further clouds your judgment. This controlled breathing pattern, though, it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the body's natural relaxation response. It effectively reverses the physiological signs of stress, brings in more oxygen, and literally calms your system down, giving you those precious seconds to think clearly and choose a response rather than just reacting impulsively.
That makes so much sense. It's like a physiological reset button you can
Yeah.
press. So that's powerful for an intense moment. But what about cultivating that sense of calm throughout our day so we're maybe less likely to be triggered in the first place? Our sources emphasize mindfulness in everyday life, clarifying it's not just about sitting meditation or, formal yoga practice.
Mhm.
It's about being present in each moment, observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Think about how many conversations we have where we're not truly listening, just kind of waiting for our turn to speak, formulating our reply.
That's a perfect example. By simply paying full, undivided attention, whether it's actively listening in a conversation, really savoring each bite of food, or just focusing on routine activities like washing dishes or brushing your teeth, you are practicing mindfulness. These seemingly simple acts bring a really profound sense of presence and calm, making you less susceptible to the immediate grip of whatever's happening externally. It's about bringing your full self to whatever you're doing right now, rather than letting your mind constantly pull you into worries about the past or anxieties about the future.
Like, building on that practice of mindfulness, the material then digs into developing self-awareness skills. What does it actually mean to become the observer of your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors? Is it about being critical of yourself, or is there a different mindset involved?
Oh, it's absolutely not about judgment or self-criticism. That's really important. It's more like a gentle, compassionate inquiry into your own inner workings. When you practice self-awareness, you start to notice patterns. Maybe you react more sharply when you're tired, right? Or feel more anxious when you haven't eaten.
Yeah, definitely noticed that one.
See, these aren't just random occurrences. They're like little windows into the underlying mechanisms of your behavior. The sources also introduce the crucial step of labeling and accepting emotions. This just means recognizing your emotions as they pop up and giving them a name, whether it's anger, sadness, frustration, whatever it is. This act of labeling actually creates a psychological distance. You're observing the emotion rather than being totally consumed by it.
Ah, okay.
And acceptance follows labeling. What's fascinating here is how this acceptance provides clarity. It actually lessens the power emotions have over your reactions. It doesn't mean resignation, like, oh, well, I'm angry. It means acknowledging that emotions are valid signals. They're giving you information that serves a purpose.
Right. And once you've started mastering that labeling and acceptance, the sources then move to reframing negative thoughts. This sounds like a really powerful mental exercise, but what's the core idea? And how do we practically apply it without just, pretending things are fine when they're not?
That's a great question. Reframing is consciously choosing a more positive or maybe just a neutral interpretation of a situation over a purely negative one. It's about transforming your perspective. Our sources offer a great, really relatable example. Imagine you're stuck in terrible traffic and you're running late for something important. Your initial automatic thought might be, ugh, this always happens to me. Why do I have such bad luck?
Right.
Totally.
Been there.
Reframing would be to consciously shift that thought, maybe to something like, okay, this traffic gives me an unexpected opportunity to relax for a minute and listen to my favorite podcast before that stressful meeting. It's not about ignoring the fact you're stuck. It's about widening your viewpoint and actively controlling the only thing you can control in that moment, which is your thoughts and your emotional response to the situation.
That reframing, it really seems to tie into a broader mindset shift, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Our sources bring in these concepts of developing a growth mindset and also embracing imperfections. How do these play into emotional control?
They're absolutely interconnected. A growth mindset fundamentally is the belief that your basic abilities can be developed. They can be enhanced through dedication, hard work, and maybe most importantly, through learning from failure. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, a growth mindset shifts your focus away from this idea of a fixed state of perfection towards a dynamic process of progress. It's about the journey. It encourages you to view challenges not as threats, but as opportunities for learning, to be genuinely open to feedback, even critical feedback. And to understand that effort is really the key driver of growth. And part of that whole journey is embracing imperfections. The material really emphasizes that recognizing and accepting your personal flaws isn't a sign of weakness at all. It's actually a pivotal step towards self-improvement and building resilience. It teaches you that it's okay to stumble, that mistakes aren't dead ends, they're stepping stones. So when you inevitably fall short, because we all do, you reflect on what went wrong, you try to abstract the valuable lessons, and then you consciously let go of the self-judgment. You're not defined by your failures, but by how you choose to respond to them and learn from them.
So we've talked quite a bit about gaining this internal control, this awareness. Now, how do we take that and apply it to how we interact with the world, with other people? Our sources focus heavily on practicing empathy and compassion. What's the core difference between these two? And why are they described as sort of gateways to emotional intelligence when responding to others?
Yeah, they're distinct but very deeply intertwined. Empathy, as our sources explain it, is about actively listening to understand and validate another person's emotions, even if you wouldn't feel the same way yourself in that situation. It's about stepping into their shoes, both intellectually and emotionally, trying to grasp their perspective. There's cognitive empathy, which is understanding someone else's thoughts and feelings, and then there's emotional empathy, actually feeling what another person feels. Now, while emotional empathy is powerful, too much of it, without clear boundaries, can actually lead to burnout. Compassion, on the other hand, goes a step further. It's not just understanding someone's pain, but feeling a genuine desire to help alleviate it. So your role often is to understand, validate, and sort of share in their human experience, not necessarily to jump in and fix their emotions for them.
That distinction is really important. Okay?
Yeah.
And with that outward focus, the sources then loop back to a really vital personal responsibility, taking responsibility for reactions. Why is owning our reactions so empowering?
It's truly transformative because it shifts the locus of control right back to you. The key concept here is recognizing that you are ultimately in control of your reactions. Not the triggering situation, not the other person involved. It's about consciously using that pause before reacting that we talked about to choose responses that are aligned with your values, your goals, rather than simply being a knee-jerk consequence of some external stimuli. And this also profoundly impacts your relationships. This raises an important question. How much stronger do our relationships become when we truly own our responses? When we accept consequences, make amends where necessary? Our relationships become built on trust and respect rather than getting stuck in defensiveness or blame.
That self-ownership leads directly into improving how we communicate, which our sources dive into by highlighting improving communication skills and also de-escalating conflicts effectively. What are the foundational elements of better communication when emotional control is really paramount?
Well, the absolute cornerstone is active listening. Truly hearing and processing what the other person is saying, not just waiting to jump in with your rebuttal. Then it's about expressing yourself clearly and assertively. And I want to stress assertively, not aggressively. Assertiveness means standing up for your own rights and needs respectfully without violating the rights of others. And we mustn't forget nonverbal communication, your body language, your facial expressions, your tone of voice. These often speak much louder than your actual words. It's an ongoing process, communication. It demands an openness to feedback and, frankly, the humility to admit when you're wrong. And this leads directly into effective conflict de-escalation. When conflicts inevitably pop up, your ability to remain calm, remember, emotions are contagious.
Oh, yeah.
To listen attentively, Show empathy and use non-confrontational language. Things like, I statements, I feel hurt when, instead of, you always make me feel, that can profoundly impact the outcome. The immediate goal isn't always to resolve the entire issue right then and there, but definitely to prevent it from escalating further into something bigger.
Right, stopping the spiral. And to maintain that calm and clear space, our sources strongly emphasize setting healthy boundaries. For listeners who might be familiar with the term, but maybe not the nuances, what exactly are these boundaries and why are they so crucial for emotional well-being?
Boundaries are essentially those invisible lines you draw around yourself. They define your personal space, emotional, physical, mental, and dictate how you allow others to treat you. Their purpose is really to create a safe space where you feel valued, respected, and understood. They really bolster your self-esteem, safeguard your freedom, and reinforce your sense of individuality. Now, to set them effectively, it begins with self-awareness, knowing your feelings, your needs, your values, then communicating them assertively. It is perfectly okay to say no. That's a complete sentence.
That's a hard one for many people.
It really is. But crucially, setting healthy boundaries is a two-way street. It also means respecting the boundaries that others set for themselves. This fosters mutual respect in all your relationships.
Okay, so we've discussed understanding emotions, creating pauses, shifting mindsets, interacting effectively. But what about the long game? How do we sustain this level of emotional well-being? Our sources emphasize building emotional resilience. How do they define resilience, and what are its key components?
The sources describe resilience as like a robust emotional immune system, or maybe an armor against life's challenges. It's not about avoiding difficult feelings. Let's be clear on that. It's about acknowledging them, understanding them, and managing them effectively when they inevitably arise. There's a great saying that comes to mind. You can't control the waves, but you can learn how to surf. That's resilience.
Love that.
It's about cultivating flexibility and adaptability in the face of adversity, and nurturing a positive mindset, one rooted in hope and optimism, even when circumstances are really challenging. It's the capacity to bounce back, not by denying reality, but by learning from it and integrating the experience.
That concept of resilience ties directly into managing stress and anxiety, and also developing patience and tolerance. What practical advice did the sources offer for these interconnected areas?
Well, for managing stress and anxiety, the material reinforces practices we've already touched on, like mindfulness, but it combines them with essential lifestyle choices. Consistent physical activity, good nutrition, adequate sleep, the fundamentals, and continuing that practice of reframing negative thoughts. It also wisely advises seeking professional help when the challenges feel overwhelming. There's no weakness in that.
Absolutely.
And developing patience and tolerance. That involves understanding that personal growth, and indeed many life circumstances, just take time. You often can't rush them. It's about learning to accept discomfort when it arises, acknowledging your feelings without judgment, and using mindfulness to recognize that feelings, even intense ones, are temporary states. This awareness helps you see that impulsive reactions rarely serve your long-term goals. Patience really pays off.
This brings us to a truly vital element for emotional resilience and overall mental well-being: practicing self-compassion regularly. Our sources call it opening a door to a healthier mental state. What is the core idea behind self-compassion, and how do we actually practice it? Seems easier said than done sometimes.
It can be, especially if we're used to being hard on ourselves. The core idea is simple, yet really profoundly powerful. Understanding your own emotions, acknowledging your own pain, and responding to yourself with kindness and understanding. It's recognizing that suffering, struggle, and imperfection are not personal failings. They're fundamental parts of the shared human experience. We all go through it. Practically speaking, it's about offering yourself the same comfort, patience, and understanding you would readily give to a close friend when they're struggling.
That's a good benchmark.
Right. It's not about ignoring or suppressing pain, but rather creating a safe internal space for those difficult emotions to exist without completely overwhelming you. And what's fascinating here is how much energy is freed up when you choose to do this. When you stop fighting yourself, you have more energy to move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. And flowing from self-compassion, our sources introduce a suite of other long-term practices that support this emotional well-being. What are some of those key practices that really help solidify this mastery over time?
Well, they highlight learning to forgive quickly. And this is really about liberating yourself from the heavy burden of resentment. It's not about condoning what happened or saying it was okay. It's about objectively reflecting on the hurt and making a conscious decision to let go, often for your own peace of mind and energy conservation. Forgiveness is often more for you than for them.
Mm.
Then there's letting go of ego and pride. This reminds us that while our ego can sometimes act as a protective armor, it can also become a significant barrier to growth, connection, and genuine learning. Cultivating humility and empathy fosters a much healthier perspective and allows for deeper, more authentic relationships. And finally, cultivating gratitude daily is presented as an invaluable tool. It enhances your entire outlook and creates this powerful buffer against negative emotions. It's about consciously acknowledging and truly feeling thankful for the good things in your life, both big and small. Even keeping a simple gratitude journal, writing down a few things each day, can literally start to rewire your brain to focus more consistently on the positive.
Amazing. So bringing all of these threads together, all these practices and mindset shifts, our sources culminate with maintaining emotional balance. And sounds like the ultimate goal of this entire journey we've been discussing. So what does it mean to achieve this state, and what does it actually look like in practical terms for you, the listener?
Yeah, it's really about achieving a stable emotional equilibrium, becoming, as the source material beautifully puts it, like the calm eye at the center of a storm, largely impervious to the chaos that might be swirling around you. In practical terms, it means consistently understanding your triggers, practicing mindfulness daily, prioritizing self-care like it's non-negotiable, and crucially, not suppressing your emotions, but rather controlling how you respond to them. It means you are the master of your emotions, not the other way around. The journey outlined in these sources, it's really about empowering you to take charge of your inner world, to cultivate a deep sense of gratitude, and to stride confidently into a future where your emotional balance doesn't just reign supreme, but truly defines the quality of your entire life.
Wow. This deep dive into the power of not reacting really shows us that true, lasting control comes from within. It's cultivated through consistent practice and dedicated self-awareness. It's clearly not an overnight transformation, is it? It's a continuous journey of pretty profound growth. So here's a final thought to leave you with. Imagine how differently your personal and maybe your professional landscape could look if you consistently applied even just one of these techniques we talked about. Maybe the 4-7-8 breathing, or simply trying to reframe a challenging thought to your most difficult interactions this coming week. Just one thing, what new possibilities might open up for you?
Okay.
Thank you for your support and for listening.